It was a busy first day of NFL free agency, so let's dive into a few of my favorite moves from the start of the legal tampering period in today's episode of Best Available. Thank you for watching today's episode. Make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube if you're not already. If you want to find another way to support the channel, consider becoming a member, especially if you're a draft fan. I highly encourage it. You will get full access to my live NFL Draft Big Board. Link in the bio for details on how to become a member. Again, a great way to support the channel. Let's go ahead and dive into it. I know we got a few names to talk about. For the sake of this video, I want to make sure that I explain what I'm looking for to determine my favorite moves. This has to feel like a win-win for both parties. I don't want too much of an overpay. I want a fair deal so that the team isn't hindered on future transactions. But I also want a player to get paid on a fair market deal and end up in a really good situation. You'll be able to find other videos from other channels on guys like Mike Evans and Tyler Linderbaum, but for the sake of this exercise, those are pretty big deals that you could argue limit the team building around them, but I still think those are really good players. If you don't, because you're not hearing those names, I don't want you to think I think those are bad deals. But let's talk about a few of these other moves from day one that I was just a huge fan of. Monday night ended with what might have been the best value move from any team and one of these big swings, and that's Devin Lloyd going to the Carolina Panthers. Carolina arguably ends up with the top available linebacker in this free agency class on a pretty reasonable deal, with NFL Network's Mike Garafolo reporting that it's a 3-year, $45 million deal with $25 million in guaranteed money. That puts Lloyd tied for 4th in average annual value on a contract for linebackers and tied for 7th in guaranteed money. That's a great deal for a Panthers defense that's been in clear need of some impact players on that front seven to take some of the pressure off Derek Brown. That's exactly what Devin Lloyd will bring. After taking some lumps as a rookie in Jacksonville, it felt like Lloyd really found his footing the last couple of seasons. He's a true 3-down linebacker that brings value both filling the run and dropping back into coverage. And what I like about this for the Panthers, beyond it just being a pretty fair deal, is that it really opens up the possibilities with their first-round pick. One of the common mocks you kept seeing was like C.J. Allen, some kind of linebacker to lead this defense. Now, with Lloyd now on the roster, they can really go in a variety of different directions. I really like the move. I think it's really solid value. Carolina's getting a really good player, and for Lloyd, really nice payday on top of the opportunity to be a true leader for a Panthers defense. No one attacks a weakness quite like Les Snead and Sean McVay with the Los Angeles Rams. They're another big winner of the first day of free agency for me, because they attacked what was very clearly their biggest weakness from last season by essentially raiding Kansas City secondary. After trading for Trent McDuffie, the Rams took a swing on another Chiefs cornerback, this time signing Jaylen Watson to a 3-year, $51 million deal with $35 million guaranteed. From a 7th-round pick to a top starting corner, Watson absolutely deserves this deal as one of the better success stories after thriving in Steve Spagnuolo's defense. This past season, when thrown at, Watson allowed a nice passer rating of just 69.0, with 0 touchdowns allowed and a pair of interceptions hauled in. This move gives the Rams another lengthy, ideal cornerback at 6'2" and 197 pounds, and a guy that loves to be disruptive in press coverage. The big question with this move and the McDuffie trade is whether or not the Rams are open to being a more press-heavy defense. Not surprisingly, the Chiefs had the #1 press defense in the league last year as far as usage of press. I'm very curious to see if Chris Shula is open to that, because that's where McDuffie and Watson thrive. And I think if they're open to that, this is a really scary Rams defense, especially when you consider all the playmakers they have up front. I wanted to make sure I included a running back on this list, and originally I had Kenneth Walker here for the Chiefs just because it's a big splash signing, but I like it. But at the same time, there's some arguments against that move that I can at least appreciate and listen to. And the more I realized it, the more I really liked the Arizona Cardinals signing Tyler Allgeier, and it might have been my favorite value for a running back. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported it was a 2-year, $12.25 million deal for Allgeier, who gets a solid contract for a backup running back. Allgeier has always been a rock-solid backup behind Bijan Robinson, serving as this kind of change of pace power back at 220 pounds, to the point where over his career he's generated 3.2 yards after contact per carry. I think this is a really solid hedge bet by Arizona to add another running back after reworking James Conner's deal, because there's still a lot up in the air with Conner. He's 31 years old. He's coming off that really rough season-ending ankle injury last season. And if Connor doesn't look the same after that, they have this really legit power back behind him that either can serve as the backup if Connor's healthy, or if not, he can be more of a featured back on this offense. I just think it's a really prudent move by Arizona. I really appreciate with a new staff with Mike LaFleur that they are not too eager to just jump in and take huge swings in free agency. I've liked a few of their moves that they've made so far. All right, you guys know I'm a Packers fan, so we'll get this one out of the way. All right, we won't get it out of the way. We got to talk about it a bit. I do think this is one of the best moves in free agency. The Chicago Bears really needed to figure out their secondary with their cap situation. They cleared a bunch of it in hopes that maybe they're going to take a big swing. And in my opinion, this is a pretty damn good big swing by signing Coby Bryant, the former Seattle Seahawks safety. Bryant gets a 3-year, $40 million deal coming off a Super Bowl with the Seahawks, and that's a really solid payday for a guy that has developed into one of the more reliable safeties in the NFL. What really stands out when you watch Bryant is he's got really impressive downhill trigger and explosiveness when trying to trigger on the middle of the field or fill the run. But he's also got that play speed and aggressiveness to trust his eyes and attack sideline to sideline as a rangy safety. I think it gives him a ton of versatility, and it's a really good fit for Dennis Allen's defensive scheme. I think it's a really good deal for $40 million over 3 seasons. This is just a fun player that feels like an upgrade, honestly, at safety for what the Bears had last season, and they get him secured for a couple of years. Now, the Bears still do have a few other holes in that secondary to address, but they're not breaking the bank for this one while Bryant's still getting paid respectably. I just think it's a really rock-solid move. Honestly, I thought one of the biggest winners of free agency in the first day was the New York Jets, mostly because I feel like they were doing stuff that wasn't very Jets-coded. This is a new regime. And what I appreciate is they're not trying to panic and take 2 huge swings and grossly overpay free agents. A lot of their moves felt very reasonable. I even liked the Demario Davis one as far as, getting a veteran leader in the middle of the defense, especially if you're going to draft Sonny Styles or Arvell Reese. But that wasn't my favorite move the Jets made. That was Joseph Ossai. That move has me particularly excited because every time I would turn on the Trey Hendrickson tape, I kept noticing Ossai on the other side as one of these really exciting potential edge rushers. Had a career-high 43 pressures this past season, and he's on a really reasonable 3-year, $36 million deal. It's not like he's breaking the bank here, but on a team that needs a lot of just assets in general after stripping the defense to the studs, I think that's more than reasonable. And, if Ossai continues to develop like I think he could in a more featured role, this might end up being one of the biggest steals of free agency this year. I love that they added Ossai while also adding Kingsley Enagbari on a 1-year deal alongside of him. It's just if you want to build out an edge room quickly without breaking the bank to an absurd degree, I think those are a pair of really nice moves. They trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick. They bring in Demario Davis. It's a bunch of adults that aren't breaking the bank, and I think this is all really solid moves. It's a really nice job of staying patient while still trying to build out a legitimate roster for the Jets. Another team picking at the top of the draft and also rebuilding is the Las Vegas Raiders. And I'll admit, I don't like all the moves they made. I think they took some swings in the opposite direction of the Jets where it feels a little more desperate at times, trying to throw some big bags at some free agents, and don't agree with all of the moves. But there were a few I did like, including the one with Jalen Nailor, who may not be a household name to a lot of NFL fans, but when you consider the contract and the fit, I think this is a really rock-solid move. Nailor gets a 3-year, $35 million deal to be a potential wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 on this offense. And what I appreciate is that Nailor can wear a couple of different hats for the Raiders as both an inside slot and outside option. What I appreciate is that while he's never been the focal point of a passing attack, especially in Minnesota when you guys have guys like Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, when his name is called, he can have a real impact. You can point to the 124-yard game earlier this season against the Baltimore Ravens. And the quarterback situation has obviously been very in flux in Minnesota. But when you watch him, he's a really solid, crafty route runner. He's got some speed to him. I just want some proven adults that can play wide receiver in that room. And I think that's what Fernando Mendoza is going to need. We can just assume that he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. Getting some guys that can get open and have been around the league for a little bit, I just think that's really valuable to a rookie quarterback. They're building out the offensive line with that Linderbaum move. They've got a couple hopefully healthy tackles who I think are solid. And when you add a player like Nailor to this offense with the tight end talent as well, I think it's going to make things a lot easier on him. It feels like the Raiders are, at least, I can appreciate, even if they're taking some big swings, trying to make sure that Fernando Mendoza is as set up as possible to succeed and not crumble in his first year. And let's wrap it up with one more. I already talked nice stuff about a Bears player, so I'm going to say some nice things about Malik Willis, because I did actually end up really liking this move for both sides. For Willis, this is an opportunity to finally be a starting quarterback again in the NFL, and he gets a really nice 3-year, $67.5 million deal with $45 million guaranteed. It was going to be tough to find a reasonable price for a quarterback because the financial situation has gotten a lot trickier over the next couple of years. $99 million in dead cap by cutting Tua. That is an NFL record. It's going to be split in some order over the next 2 seasons, so you need a quarterback, but also one that's not going to break the bank. Malik Willis gets a similar deal to the Justin Fields deal that he got with the New York Jets, but you tack on another year, maybe a little bit more guaranteed money. But what really needs to happen now, because I like the value for the quarterback. He's a really fun player with play speed and arm talent, but you now need to focus on building the offense around him. Like, you can't run, more of a traditional offense. You really need to lean into Willis's skill set. We saw that's how he thrived as a backup, fill in for the Green Bay Packers. But the good news is they do still have speed on this roster, whether it's Jaylen Waddle or Devon Achane. I'm really curious to see how they build everything around Malik Willis. A new regime. It is funny just seeing that it's the Miami Packers with Malik Willis, Jeff Hafley, John Eric Sullivan. But it is really exciting. It's an exciting time to be a Dolphins fan. I know the dead cap hit's going to hurt them a little bit from a roster construction standpoint. But when it comes to Malik Willis, as long as they're willing to lean into his skill set, I think this could be a fun year for their offense. And that'll do it. Obviously, there's plenty of moves to talk about from the first day, and there's going to be plenty more over the next week. What have been your favorite moves so far? Please let me know in the comments. I'm really curious to see what people found good value in, what moves they're really excited about, and then ones you may have disliked. I don't typically like to talk about losers on this video, on this channel. I think we like to try and keep it a little more positive. We can be critical without being nasty, right? In free agency, there's always a ton of risk coming with signing free agents, but I thought some of these moves were good value. So let me know in the comments what you thought and who you really liked from the first day of free agency. We'll be back later this week. We've got draft talk talking about off-ball linebackers, and then I'll figure out what we're doing on Friday. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you later. Take care.